That's right, I'm back, and this time with another Super Meat Boy video. Great. If you remember last time, my first video, I talked about Super Meat Boy and its very awful and disappointing sequel. But I also dove into the history of Meat Boy too. But this time, I'm more experienced in video making, and I can't possibly mess it up. So now maybe my opinions can be more fleshed out. I doubt it though. That's right, in the time since I've made that video, we've gotten another Meat Boy game. This time in the form of a spin-off starring Dr. Fetus. It was announced back in March with the title Dr. Fetus's Mean Meat Machine, which, yeah, is a reference to Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that was a cute reference. Now, if you know me, you'll know my opinion of Meat Boy is already at an all-time low. Like, it'd be practically impossible to get lower than rock bottom. And I can't say that the announcement of this was anything but a feeling of whatever. I don't care. An actual Meat Boy spin-off that's a Puyo Puyo clone? Kind of a weird combination that no one really seemed to ask for. How the hell do you even get Puyo Puyo out of Meat Boy of all things? You know, the platformer. But regardless, Puyo Puyo is pretty fun, and if it's just a clone of that, how can you possibly mess it up? I think you already know where I'm going with this. So the game came out on June 23rd to little to no fare, as in I didn't see anyone talk about this. I saw some reactions when the game was announced, but I saw no one talk about its release, how it played, or anything. It was bizarre. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know it came out until I briefly saw it all the way at the bottom of the Steam Summer Sale list. On sale for a whopping 10% off. How generous. Though I really can't complain about $9, it was cheaper than Forever at least. When I checked out the Steam page, I can't say that I was surprised to see the reviews were on par with Forever's. Completely mixed. But I checked it out again recently and it seems to be saying mostly positive now, so maybe it actually is good. And I have to go into this with an open mind. It's a spin-off of a Meat Boy game. Could this game be the breath of fresh air that Meat Boy gets? Maybe it's actually a diamond in the rough this time. And even if I wasn't interested in playing it, you guys seem to really like me talking about Forever when it came out. So I thought I'd give it a small shot at the very least. I mean, seriously, it's Puyo Puyo. How bad could you possibly mess? How does this keep happening to me? So like last time, I'm gonna segment this up into different sections: story, music, art style, and gameplay. Considering how this is a shorter game as a whole and a spin-off, some sections are gonna be shorter than others, unfortunately, but yeah. Let's just get this over with, okay? The story isn't really anything to write home about again. I'm not surprised because it's a Meat Boy game, but still. It's a direct follow-up to the ending of Super Meat Boy Forever, with Dr. Fetus needing to find a way to create the perfect clone of Meat Boy so he can just keep killing him over and over. That's it. That's all it is. Seriously, that's it. For a doctor, he's not very smart at this point. Creating a clone of the guy that beat you up twice now doesn't seem like the best idea. Imagine if Bowser made a bunch of clones of Mario. What do you think he would expect out of that? A hug with some cookies and milk? No. Though in all fairness, I think it's emphasized at the end that cloning all the Meat Boys isn't a very good idea. So oh well, that's the story, moving on. The art style is the exact same as Forever's. Almost. Even though it retained the same art style, I'd say it actually looks worse here. And it still has the same problems I have with the modern Meat Boy style as a whole. I don't think I talked about it too much in my Forever video, but the problem I have with the current art style is that, while it doesn't look terrible, it doesn't feel authentic and, passionate. The current style feels like it's wearing a shell of Edmund's old style, when in reality behind that shell is a very corporate and static style. And I really don't want to say that, but it just feels like that. When I see the cutscenes in the original Meat Boy, I see a passion behind it. I see Edmund's style. It's his character, and the way he portrays it is up to him. You can see that in the cutscenes. But when it comes to the modern cutscenes, it just feels like they're trying to replicate what made Meat Boy so passionate to begin with. Like, it feels like it wants to be more of a brand than an actual passion. Sound familiar? If you want a somewhat weird example, look at Chad in this game. He just looks so off to me. He looks super out of place just due to the fact that it's trying to replicate the old game's style, but also trying to look newer. But it just looks so weird. I guess because it's a smaller spin-off, it has to look more stagnant, but I don't really think that excuses the god-awful menus. I know you may think I'm nitpicking, but that's one thing I can give Forever looking back. It knew how to keep everything looking stylish, even the menu and stuff. But in this one, some things just straight up look off. The settings literally feel so spaced out and empty, like a lack of care was put into making sure every little bit of this game looked good. Or even the victory screen and the pause screen, everything is so stiff and bland and it just doesn't have the same flair the other two games had. It almost feels like a placeholder like that recent Gollum game. I know that's a big comparison, but you have to know what I mean. Defeating a boss is so anticlimactic because it's just a stiff ending with no cutscene or cool defeat animation. It just ends. And look at the title screen. Meat Boy Forever's title screen at least looked somewhat cool and was actually animated, but like, what is this? It just feels so boring, like it was made in a day. They dumbed down an already boring and sterile art style, and that's really upsetting to say. I do think the animators do a great job at animating the characters, especially in the two cutscenes that are in this game, but it's just not Meat Boy. Also, one last thing I want to say, having a gray background with gray saw blades was the dumbest idea ever. There were so many instances where I didn't even notice a saw blade because it blended in even just a little bit, and I would only be able to see when the blood was splattered on it from the pieces. We'll get to gameplay in a bit, but I just hated that, and no, I swear it's not a skill issue. Okay, maybe it is a little bit. Okay, I'm sorry, but how is the music worse in this than it was in Forever? What is going on with Meat Boy?
We'd like to take a moment to announce that
the music is absolutely terrible in this. Seriously, so bad. It's remixed versions of themes from the previous games because the game is lacking in any sort of creativity or originality, but they objectively sound worse. It got so bad that I actually had to straight up mute the game, something I could at least handle not doing in Forever, and I was very critical about the music in that game. I mean, seriously, just listen to one of these. Okay, look, I know I'm probably being harsh because, again, this is a small spin-off, something Forever was supposed to be. But how can I not be? We've gotten two Meat Boy games now that stray so far away from what made the original so amazing. I'm not even asking for it to be exactly like the first one, just innovate in a correct way. Meat Boy was such a huge deal for the platforming genre. How has it fallen so far from grace? Ugh! Alright, let's talk about the biggest factor of this game. Dr. Fetus's Mean Meat Machine's gameplay? It's abysmal. What, you expected me to say but? No. This gameplay is just actually horrible. I thought auto running was the lowest of the low? Nah. Puyo Puyo without what makes any of it fun is even lower. For those who have never played or heard of Puyo Puyo, the main point of the game is to connect 4 of the same colors in some way. When you do that, they get destroyed and fill a little meter on the left. Each time the meter is filled fully, it'll make the level harder until you eventually finish the level after matching enough. It's kind of like Tetris in that the fun comes from doing really cool tricks and combos. This game? It doesn't take advantage of that whatsoever. It tries to really push for you to do combos, but as the levels go on, there are just so many obstacles that can just kill you in the way that there's no point in even doing any combos. Except, you know, if you want invincibility for like 10 seconds. By the way, that's the gimmick of this Puyo Puyo clone. Obstacles. It tries to combine the elements of Meat Boy with things like buzzsaws, lasers, rockets, stuff like that can kill you in one hit. With Puyo Puyo, a game that is built around strategizing your combos, it just doesn't work. The obstacles are there to make the game feel like it's harder, but in reality, it's the equivalent of your little sibling hitting you while you're trying to play a game non-stop. It's just a nothing addition that makes the game more annoying just for the sake of being different. Despite there being a reward for getting combos, you might as well throw all that knowledge out the window because you'll barely get any of those. The game just wants you to connect the criteria of color just to end the level. That's it. The only reason getting combos in this game feels satisfying is because they're near impossible to get. Listen, I suck at Puyo Puyo, like, really suck. I can't even say I'm good at it, trust me. But even I can tell that this is completely mindless, and none of the level designs were remotely interesting in the slightest. Not to mention every mechanic or gimmick is just a direct copy of something from the first 2 games. They didn't even bother adding any new worlds or something original. Every single world and level is something that was from the first 2 games. The levels weren't even hard in a this is fun kind of way, like Celeste is. I've been playing Celeste recently, so it really gave me a frame of reference of the potential games can have with the tools they're given. But Mean Meat Machine was just hard in the why am I playing this? This is not fun kind of way. Every single time one of your controlled pieces die, you have to restart from the beginning of the checkpoint you've gotten. There's an option to play these levels without the checkpoint, which, why would you? See, I thought it was unnecessary and stupid and forever, but here, it actually feels necessary with how bullshit some of these levels can be. Sometimes pieces dying just feels completely out of your control and unfair, especially when you're trying to attempt to, you know, build up a combo, the thing Puyo Puyo is known for. You know what, why is this even a Puyo Puyo clone? You could have spun off anything and you went with Puyo Puyo for a gameplay style like this? Really? Is it because the name is a funny meme? Is that it? Tetris is literally right there. It's on the table, and it would have made much more sense for a gameplay style like this. Could you imagine the fun little Meat Boy pieces that would have been made? Like, imagine a little T-shaped Meat Boy. That would have been funny. I'm sure on paper this would have been an amazing idea, but the execution is so bare bones and lazy that it makes me not surprised to feel like the direction of Meat Boy is going down all the way into the depths. Oh yeah, this game has bosses too. And oh yeah, they're also worse than Forever's bosses. Not because they're ridiculously hard, not because they're easy, but just because they are so boring. They're more obstacle than they are boss, and defeating them just feels like you completed a normal level. It's so anticlimactic. You're just getting them over with to hop onto the next world. I would have at least appreciated a small cute cutscene or something, but it's just nothing. You just go to the next world like you're just going on with your day. So speaking of worlds, that's one thing I can give the game. There's more levels in this than there are in Forever. How funny is that? There's even more worlds! But I guess when you rehash from other games and just plop obstacles anywhere, it's not really that hard, huh? There was also this thing that happened every few levels where the little gremlin pieces you used started to evolve. I get why they're there, but why? I thought it would have had some sort of significance, but it's just a visual change that adds nothing. Maybe add some more unique gimmicks to the pieces or something. I don't know. I'm trying to work off of something here. Another thing that really bugs me about this game is just how slow it felt. Meat Boy's whole thing is that it's a fast-paced platformer. This one is just slow as sin in the worst way possible. If the first Meat Boy was carrying around a bag of feathers, Meat Machine is carrying around a bag of anvils. Going back to what I said before though, the Meat Machine has more levels than Forever. For the worse. It has 20 levels, one of them being a boss level. The first Meat Boy has 20 levels because they're shorter and faster paced. This game has several checkpoints each level with new annoying mechanics being thrown at you left and right. Normally I'd be all for innovating gameplay mechanics, but here it's just an annoyance. Most of the time you're just losing your setups, you're just losing your pieces that are already put down. It's just not fun. And as the levels go on, you just want to get it over with. As a matter of fact, it was so slow and boring that the friends that were watching me playing could barely even pay attention and watch anymore. Most of them just tabbing out and just muting the stream. It was that uninteresting.
Oh god, I feel like I have to stop fucking watching this.
It's actually great aim.
It is genuinely pissing me off. This is like nothing. This is fucking Cocomelon. This is nothing.
They wanted to ape like Tetris or Puyo. That didn't even make it look fun. There's no flair, there's no nothing.
It was just abysmally slow and boring. It feels like with Meat Machine that they didn't learn from Forever that more does not equal better. Quantity does not equal quality. If there is another thing that really stuck out to me, it's the fact that this feels really unpolished. Like, almost like it wasn't play tested because of how whack some of the level design is, or just how weird the game looks in some instances. For example, like I mentioned before, the menus and stuff, just, ugh. And sometimes my inputs just wouldn't be put in correctly, and they would be delayed or something, and I played on keyboard. This isn't a wireless controller option, this is keyboard. And because of it, I would die, and it just became so frustrating. And if it wasn't the keyboard jank, it would definitely be the hitbox jank. Sometimes I think I timed things right to avoid an obstacle, but nope, I touched a single pixel of it, so I'm dead. There was a part in the final boss of the game where I got soft locked on the second to last phase and I was really, really pissed. Like, how does this even happen? I was just stuck and couldn't do anything, so I had to start the whole thing all over again. I also love how when I beat the game and watched the ending, it just brought me back to the menu and said, yep, you're done, go home. There's not even an after game or a reward for trying to do as much as you can, it's just over. Not every game needs an after game, but I think it would have at least benefit from having extra content instead of just a boring, lackluster main story and nothing else. The first Meat Boy had Bandage World, and Forever at least had that one glitchy world that I didn't bother playing. But it was still cool to have extra content after. There's also a ranking system in this one, much like the first two, and let me just say, I only got 2 A+ throughout my entire playthrough. I think what made the first two work when it comes to getting A+ ranks is that you unlock the Dark World levels to incentivize getting them. In this, what's the point? It just feels like a you did it sticker, and nothing else. That's not rewarding or satisfying. You need to have an incentive to get A+ ranks besides an achievement on Steam. Why not make a Dark World and toy around with the previous levels? It clearly wasn't hard to make more levels than Forever, so why not, you know? Okay, look, again, I know it may seem like I'm being very harsh on this small spin-off game, but just for a second, I want to compare another spin-off puzzle game. One that I'll probably talk about in another video one day, but probably not. It's called The Legend of Bumbo. Bumbo is a spin-off of Isaac, taking the item Bumbo and turning it into a character. Though the game isn't as popular and is smaller in scale, it actually works. It's just a Connect 4 style game and is actually really fleshed out. It takes gameplay elements from Isaac as well and makes them work in a way that feel unique and fresh from it. Not to mention the art style is actually unique as well. It's supposed to represent Isaac playing with his toys and it really shows. And I'm happy they really went with this direction. I wish I could say the same about Meat Machine. I hope it's known I'm not hating on this because it's not like the original Meat Boy. I went in with a pretty open mind, knowing it'd be different. It's just such a disappointment of a spin-off. They definitely could have done more with the Puyo Puyo concept, I think. Even if it's just a bizarre and stupid concept. If there's a single thing I can give, and I just mean one more thing, it's that adding accessibility options in this was a really good play, especially giving an invincible option, because with it, I remember that without all the obstacles, this is a fun game, which isn't a compliment, really. That's sad. I didn't use the invincible option too much, if at all, but it was cool of them to at least give that option, especially for those who wanted a tolerable experience. Mean Meat Machine is certainly one of the worst games I've played this year, but it also opened my eyes in a very unique way. That being that Meat Boy is in the middle of a heavy identity crisis and has no idea what it wants to be. This has been the case ever since Edmund left. Does it want to be an auto runner? Does it want to ditch the platformer genre altogether? Does it want to be a card game? It's hard to even say what the third game will even be like at this point. And in a way, it reminds me of when Paper Mario started changing the formula. If there's one thing that's clear, it's that the series is not something that I used to care for, and all I can do is just stick to the first one. Would I recommend Mean Meat Machine to fans of Meat Boy? Absolutely not. Would I recommend it to fans of Puyo Puyo? No. Buy something useful like food or something, you know? Anyways, that's all I really have to say about this game at this point. I'd talk about it longer if I could, to be honest, but it's hard to talk about such a nothing game. I'll stick around for the third game whenever that gets announced, but I'm not hopeful. At all. Thanks for watching and don't forget to subscribe! Okay, you can go now.